historically, it is difficult for clubs to do business in January. It's such a short window, and as per usual, nothing happened at all for the first 2.5 weeks. So it's all condensed into about 10 days. We tend to do most of our business in the summer. I think, as I'd said in about November time, it might be topping up with a loan or two, and so really pleased to get 3 very different players in for January, and obviously we did a little bit of wheeling and dealing on some loans out as well for various reasons.
Just give us an idea, comparing the 2 windows, how much more difficult is it to get business done in January as opposed to obviously the summer window where you have got a series of months as opposed to one 31-day period?
Yeah, although ironically, the summer obviously it opens on the 1st of June. You've got 3 months to do again. Once again, people don't tend to do a great deal until the last couple of weeks. So it's not really drastically different. I think January is pretty much used for topping up in the majority of clubs. I think West Ham last year did quite a bit of business in January. Queen's Park Rangers have done quite a bit of business in January. Other than that, you tend to find clubs tend to do 1 or 2, and it's about topping up. Whereas in the summer, teams tend to perhaps look at their squads a bit more of a major overhaul, if you like. But you've also got contractual issues in the summer. Not many players run out of contract in January, for example, and so you tend to do most clubs do most of their business in the summer. So, regards to topping up, I think as long as you know the areas in which you're trying to do something, and if the right player comes along at the right price, then you try and do it.
Patience then at a premium, I would imagine. I mean, you said to me after the summer window that you had to be patient. I imagine it's even more so the case in January if you've got to wait till the last 7 to 10 days.
Yeah, definitely. I think again, all 3 players that we've done it done in very, very different circumstances. Scott was pre-agreed with Dundee United in around about November when the transfer window was going to open. So we already knew that deal was pretty much done. Dundee United were very good to deal with, and it was quite an easy one for Scott to come in. I think he joined us on sort of the 5th or 6th of January or something. It was quite early in January. So that deal was basically agreed with Dundee United much earlier. Liam we'd tried to get in the summer, and it wasn't to be. So it'd almost been an ongoing one as well. Although 1 or 2 things had to move and a couple of things had to change for us to be able to agree a deal for Liam. So that happened. I mean, it started to get close to agreement, I think, with about 5 days to go. And then Keith was very much last minute. We'd always wanted to do another midfield player. We'd obviously got a few injuries, and Zoltan was pretty much out for the season, and Chris Sprunt had a fairly long-term injury. We also, I think, had Shana out at the time. I think Jerome Thomas was out, and we were down to forfeit midfield players, and we didn't know Keith was going to be available. We'd seen him play several times for Ipswich when he'd been on loan from Blackburn, scored 9 or 10 goals and done really, really well, and then we'd heard sort of like the last 2 days it was going to be available, and a player of Keith's experience, of his calibre, of his ability, we had to be interested, and obviously I'm delighted for Keith that he scored on his debut, and he's just come in and fitted into what the players want to do, what Roy wants to do, and seems to have made a nice smooth transition.
And Dan says that a last-ditch deal like the one Albion struck to get Keith in are always a race to the finishing line.
Yeah, it's really difficult. I mean, first and foremost, you've got the geographical issues that, where actually physically is the player. I mean, we tried to do one on deadline day last in the summer, and the player wasn't even in this country, so it just became, you've got to turn the clock back 24 hours, otherwise you just can't do it. Fortunately, Keith was just up the road in Blackburn, which is an hour and a half down the road on the motorway. We'd agreed with Blackburn, I think, with 4 hours to go for the window to close, so that the personal terms with the player were done on speakerphone in the car with the player and the agent on the way down. So by the time he got here, it had pretty much been agreed, and then he's just got to whiz through the medical, sign everything and get the paperwork off, and it's done. So fortunately, it was quite a simple player deal, and it was quite a simple deal with Blackburn because, I say that was done with 4 hours to go. So it wasn't a long drawn out process. But we've been an admirer of Keith for a long time, and I remember seeing him 2 or 3 times playing for Republic of Ireland, and Roy had obviously was very close to signing him at Fulham as well when he was there previously. So it was a player that we knew a lot about, and as soon as he became available, it became a no-brainer for us, really.
With Liam, how much of a sense of achievement do you take when you see a long-term target like that come off? Because there must have been times with the Liam Ridgewell deal when you questioned whether it would ever happen if it's gone on for 6 months or so.
Yeah. Well, I think I think as long as you've got other options, and it wasn't it wasn't something. It wasn't like Ben, for example, the goalkeeper. We'd sold Scott Carson and we needed to get another goalkeeper in. We already had Nicky Shorey and Joe Muttick at the club as left backs. Billy Jones had stepped in admirably for Nicky for 4 or 5 games, I think, when Nicky got an injury partway through the season. So it wasn't a situation where we desperately need to go out and sign a left back because we didn't have one. We were in a position where if the deal happened, then great. We'd been an admirer for Liam for a long time. And again, like I say, it came about at the right time, at the right deal. Birmingham were happy to do it. Liam was happy to do it, and it's pleasing because we had tracked him for such a long period of time. But I think the fact that if you're in a position where you don't desperately need to do the deal, it puts you in a ease a little bit, I think.